The speaking domain of access measures students' abilities to communicate orally within the 5 WIDA standards. The first standard is for communicating for social instructional purposes within the school settings. Standards 2 to 4 focus on communicating information, ideas, and concepts necessary for academic success in language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies. The 5 standard statements are assessed on the WIDA Access for ELL's online and paper forms of the assessment. Each student oral response is measured utilizing the 3 dimensions of language: discourse, sentence, and word phrase. WIDA has identified 3 dimensions of language that define each level of language proficiency. The proficiency levels from entering to bridging are each defined by the discourse dimension, sentence dimension, and word phrase dimensions. The criteria for discourse dimension is called linguistic complexity. Linguistic complexity includes the amount, quality, and organization of language produced by the student. The criteria for sentence dimension is language forms and conventions. This criteria includes language structures and fluency in communication. It is the structural choices the student makes. Finally, we have the word phrase dimension that looks at vocabulary usage. When listening to a student's vocabulary usage, some questions that we might ask are the words general, specific, or technical vocabulary? For example, does the student say leg, kneecap, or patella? Is the student using multiple meanings of words? Every proficiency level includes a description of how students communicate at the discourse, sentence, and word phrase dimensions. When DRC raters or test administrators rate the student speaking responses, they are comparing the student's response to a model response that has been developed to represent all 3 dimensions of language utilized in the WIDA standard at a designated proficiency level. This will be explained further later in this module. What is important to remember is that all 3 dimensions of language, discourse, sentence, and word phrase, are being evaluated within each standard. Nina is our model student. Her responses do 2 things. First, they provide the students with an example of the language expected for the task. Second, Nina provides a model response for a specific task for the proficiency level of the language being evaluated. Raters use Nina's response as an example of an exemplary response for a task. It is a rater's benchmark. Her response represents all 3 dimensions of language for the specific level of the task.